Autumn has arrived here in Wesel, Germany, and we want to try out those two here. The brand new Xiaomi 17 Pro Max against the predecessor, the Xiaomi 15 Pro. And here you can see the camera specifications, basically identical, 50 megapixels. It is just that the ultra wide angle, you can see it already, is very tiny on the 17 Pro Max. So the angle of view that you get, the field of view, is also pretty tiny there. Then we have an upgrade on the 17 Pro Max. We have 50 megapixels front-facing shooter with autofocus, where on the 15 Pro only 32 megapixels and no autofocus. And I think we start off with the front-facing videos. This is the Xiaomi 15 Pro, 4K 30 frames per second, front-facing camera. How good is this working here? Timmy is there again. Doing the stabilization test for me. Anyway, what do you think about this quality here of the front-facing camera? Is there a bit of blue? I think it's overexposing there. It's a tiny bit there. It should be a bit of blue sky there, or at least grayish kind of sky, and there as well. But you see it completely overexposing. So 4K 30 frames per second. I think 4K 60 is the max that you can do here. And sadly, no switching to the back-facing cameras. Also not with HyperOS 3 that the 17 Pro Max can do. So let's switch to it. This is now the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, 4K 30 frames per second, also 4K 60, the maximum that you can do here on the front-facing camera. There's no slider to slide in or out, to zoom in or out on this one here. Angle of view should be the same as with the 15 Pro. What do you think about the quality here? How about HDR? It was a little bit there, you see it? So I think maybe slightly better, but yeah, there's a bit of blue there, slightly better only, but overall, as it features autofocus, which is quite nice, so I have the ability to focus here on the 15 Pro. Timmy on the 15 Pro. There you go. Should be in focus now. Maybe I'll show you the screen. That's a bit easier to focus on than a grayish kind of case. Anyway, what do you think about this here? And the cool thing is, like I said already, I can switch to the back-facing camera, so we'll show you the back-facing cameras as well here. And there's no audio delay, so I can count 1, 2, 3, and it's still recording nicely here without any issues. There's the main camera sensor here, 101.28 inch size sensor, slightly larger than the predecessor. And yeah, we will do a side-by-side as well. I didn't do a side-by-side on the front-facing camera because I wanted to show you this feature here. But I try to do a side-by-side now. By the way, HDR, this is how it's supposed to look like for the front-facing camera test. So both now side-by-side, as you see here, Timmy, I can switch to the ultra-wide angle. And you can see it is much wider on the 15 Pro, 0.6 times magnification, which is, I think, 16 or 15 millimeter. And it's just 17 millimeter on the 17 Pro Max. And yeah, ultra wide angles. What about stabilization? And when I pan around, do we get any jitters? Hopefully not. Let's switch to 1x. So this is 1x. Let's go 2x. And then 5x on both. Which one is sharper? Which one is more detailed? Which one has better colors? And we can go to 10x on both as well. So which one is sharper, which one is more detailed, which one is better in your opinion? Which one is working a little bit better, which one you can see a little bit more? And let's go back to the ultra wide angle. There we go, ultra wide angle. Which one has better HDR and colors? And let's maybe zoom in onto the Santander bank there, directly to 10x. 3, 2, 1, go. So there we go, both very, very stable there. Which one is more readable? What do you think? Write it on the comment section. And back to 1x. We start off with the telezoom shot, 5x on both, but we have 120mm on the 15 Pro and 115mm on the 17 Pro Max, simply because we have 24mm as 1x on the 15 Pro and we have 23mm as 1x on the 17 Pro Max. Color difference, bluer here, much warmer here, more realistic on the 17 Pro Max. It was a grayish day, it was not a such bluish kind of day that you see here. was a bit of raining even. When we zoom in, we can clearly see, first of all, that we have a brighter exposure on the 15 Pro in comparison to the 17 Pro Max. A bit more noise creeping in, but we also can see a little bit more of the construction, where here it's a little bit dark and hard to see. Also, when we check out the detail levels here, we can see more sharpening applied on the 15 Pro. This is, first of all, I think a combination of natural sharpness, but also more aggressive sharpening that is happening on the 15 Pro that we can see throughout all of the shots, where the 17 Pro Max keeps it a little bit less sharp. This works for this shot, I would say, because it looks and appears a little bit more natural, not only because of the colors, also because it doesn't have this aggressive sharpening applied. When we go into 10x, however, it is changing. Not the colors, but the sharpening. It is still a bit of more aggressive here, but it's way more tuned down, and it is more aggressive now on the 17 Pro Max. It can work and still looks a little bit better than a little bit more washed out and sharpening applied on the 15 Pro, but the approach that we had before is not applying anymore here on the 17 Pro Max, to a point where you can see, for example, here, this platform, I can only see lines going this way, where here I can see lines there and there. So there, here not, but here I can see. So there is a difference in processing, and more details are for sure in the a little bit more, 240 millimeter, 10 millimeter more that we have on the 15 Pro there for sure. When we check out the ultra wide angle, I was quite surprised by seeing this dark kind of exposure on the 17 Pro Max. That made me think I'm really right with the ultra wide angle being not so great on the 17 Pro Max, and maybe even an afterthought. The colors a bit nicer on the 17 Pro Max, because for some reason the 15 Pro thought everything needs to be blue. The exposure nicer on the 15 Pro. The detail levels, however, yes, there's a little bit of an advantage on the 17 Pro Max because it does have a narrower field of view. But when you really look at the detail levels, we can see that the difference is not so much, because the 15 Pro is sharpening things up a little bit more, where the 17 Pro doesn't have to sharpen as much. But at the end, you can see this here looking much more nicer than this here, a bit of sharpened up kind of thing. And also here, this here looks a little bit more natural than this thing, a bit sharpened up. In the end, however, I would give them equal scores, maybe leaning towards the 15 Pro, because we have a wider field of view there. And yes, the wider field of view lets me put in the whole construction side of the Berlin Gate here in Wesel, where it's not in on the 17 Pro Max. We'll check out portrait shots, and don't worry, I also have some portrait shots of human subjects or objects. And this here is 2x, 50 versus 46 millimeter. Color difference is clear, warmer on the 17 Pro Max, which I prefer. I don't prefer the 15 Pro's cooler approach here. When I zoom in, you can see that the crop of the main camera sensor that both apply is much nicer, sharper, and a little bit more detailed on the 17 Pro Max. Look at the scar here or here. I'm calling it scar, but it's like a little bit of, let's call it scar. You know what I mean. And also here the teeth, much nicer, more detailed on, and it's not a focusing issue. It's also not an issue with shutter speed or anything. And we have a wider aperture, maybe that's causing this, but it is otherwise very similar in what it achieves in terms of bokeh and in terms of cutouts. It's not much of a difference there between those two. When we check out human subjects, human objects in this case, we have also this warmth color. We can also see like this bluish coming from the street, because I thought outside is more blue, is captured fine here, where here the more grayish kind of approach is like almost eliminated out of this shot, which is interesting. This is 3x on both, 75 millimeter, which is like a tap on a button, extra tap on the 17 Pro Max, and I think on the 15 Pro Max as well. In any way, the 17 Pro Max claims to use the middle part, which is roughly this part here, from the 5x sensor. And it's like merging then the crop from the main with the 5x sensor to give you more details. The 15 Pro, as far as I'm aware, maybe is also doing that. However, what you can see clearly is we have dynamic range issues on the 15 Pro that we don't have on the 17 Pro Max. But when you zoom in, we get the same softness approach there, where here I would say, yes, it is a bit sharpened up, but I think it works a little bit better in this case for this portrait shot to have like this blouse a bit more sharper. And also this scarf, where here it's a bit maybe too soft. But you tell me what you think about those two. Is this over sharpened? If this is more natural looking, you be the judge. I think Xiaomi is doing it a little bit better. But you can also see another thing that is quite interesting. Do you see that here? AI is kicking in and creating eyes in this. I never saw that before, but really it's kicking in and creating AI. AI is creating eyes in here in this little figurine. That's a bit creepy, isn't it? For this here as well, if you look closely, there's a slight kind of like as if there would be eyes. So AI is like likely used in this shot. And also you can see here, it's a reflection of some sorts in the window, that it's like here almost completely blown out. Then talking about HDR and sharpness and details, you can clearly see on this blouse button there, the sharpening that is applied, that is more aggressive for sure. Where here it's a bit softer. And also in this case, I think this is a bit overblown, where this is also slightly overblown, but the sharpening and more contrasty look is like getting it back together. But you can also see how thicker those lines are in comparison to here. So yes, the approach in the end of which one is more realistic is probably the 17 Pro Max, because this blouse doesn't look like this. It's like clearly over sharpening and doing something. But on the other side, generating eyes here is a bit creepy. Now the ultra wide angle again. I have to finally decide which ultra wide angle I like better. And not zooming in here, I can directly tell you color is more accurate on the 17 Pro Max, but a wider field of view I like on the 15 Pro, for sure. It's just too narrow on the 17 Pro Max, and the quality wise, the difference between those two, even if I go to the sides, is not tremendous. More sharpening applied here, less sharpening applied, that I usually like. But it looks a bit more natural there for sure, and also the text here, nicer to read. But in the end, I would give the edge to the 15 Pro just because we have a wider field of view, and it's the 15 Pro. 15 Pro is taking this one just because of the wider field of view. The rest is almost identical there. If the 17 Pro Max could deliver the same quality that it has and have the same field of view as the 15 Pro, then it would definitely be the 17 Pro Max because of nicer colors. But yeah, I have to see the night photos still to judge it really. But color-wise, you can see the 17 Pro Max is winning. Why this guy is not looking orange in real life. And then zoom again, the 5x, I told you already, it's more sharpened up. This is what we can clearly see here with the text. And here it's a bit softer, more natural looking on the 17 Pro Max, which I like this approach. But actually it's switching. The 15 Pro at 10x is going to a more natural route, still a bit of sharpening up. But the 17 Pro Max, what it's doing here, it's like the opposite what the 15 Pro was doing before. I show you this with one example. This is this one here. You can see that there's a little bit of foil, should protect it against the rain. It didn't really work, but it is like getting a bit loose, creating a little bit of an unsharp spot here. And it's clearly visible on the 15 Pro. When the 17 Pro Max, it's sharpening everything up to oblivion. And you can see it here in the earlier shot where both have it. This one has it sharp and this one has it a bit softer, but we can also not see this little spot that is a bit softer than the rest. Yeah, you can see it here now, where here it is sharpening it up. You can maybe in comparison see that there's something, but now the 17 Pro Max is like over sharpening even more than the 15 Pro was doing at 5x. Main camera sensor, color difference slight, I would say. It's just slightly more warmer here on the 17 Pro Max. I like the foliage a little bit better of rendering the trees and the leaves there. Very colorful both, a bit more contrasty again on the 15 Pro, but also a bit over sharpened, and you can see it looks like a sharpened up mess, where here is looking more natural.
And you can see that probably the lens is a bit sharper as well here. Maybe the sensor is a bit better there on the 17 Pro Max. Would be bad if it would be otherwise. Same goes for the text here. The little text has some issues where here it's more readable. So yeah, I give it a slight win to the 17 Pro Max. However, I don't like it getting too unsharp towards the side. Might be my unit is getting really unsharp, where here it is, yes, it's over sharpened a bit, but it's not having this like issue also with this HDR kind of like overblown highlights there. Hard to tell, but I give it a slight edge there for the 17 Pro Max for the main camera sensor in daylight shots. It is a little bit sharper on the 15 Pro ever here, because it's sharpening things up, everything here. You can see also the spikes there, where it's more natural looking here. Still, I give it the benefit of the doubt. 17 Pro Max is slightly better there than the 15 Pro, but the difference between those two, even if you look at the other buildings here and so on in colors, is really, really negligible. It's almost the same there, but it's an improvement on the 17 Pro Max. Let's go in here, a bit of an inside German joke for people to see how the processing and sharpness of natural sharpness is doing here at 5x, because there's not much of the AI now involved. It's not over sharpening too much on the 15 Pro, and the 15 Pro is in this case doing a much nicer job. Not sure why, maybe because of the larger aperture. This one here has 1/11th of a second, so it's a bit shaky. And this might be an issue that you can run into. But we have to check the darker areas and nighttime shots as well. Shot of my daughter here. The Xiaomi 17 Pro Max for the first time failed a little bit with the colors, because it's just too greenish and bluish at the same time. So the skin here is too greenish. This is a bit too bright and too yellowish and too warm for sure on the 15 Pro. But the 17 Pro Max is struggling here, even though both shot at the same time and this thing is moving here. Maybe it's a sharpness applied. Maybe it's just because at 5x the 15 Pro seems to have a better sensor and lens combination than the 17 Pro, that the 17 Pro is losing there against the 15 Pro. Also noise levels, look at this. So it's a tinier sensor apparently, or struggles a little with noise, or the aperture some way or another. Portrait shots, we start off with the 5x zoom, and you can see that the Xiaomi 15 Pro has a bit of different kind of approach in blurring out the background, both set to f4.5 as the virtual bokeh there, but the 17 Pro Max kept the seat background in, where the 15 Pro blurred it out. Otherwise, in terms of colors, almost identical, but a bit more yellowish kind of tint on the 15 Pro. When I zoom in the detail levels, you can see that the 17 Pro Max is looking a little bit more natural, where the 15 Pro is again a little bit over sharpened, I think, and a little bit less natural looking there. But both are doing a fine job in terms of cutouts and hair. I think that the 17 Pro Max has a little bit of an edge there. You can see there a little bit finer details, finer hair kept in, where here it's just blurring it out. So yes, 5x is a win for the 17 Pro Max. This is 2x, 50 on the 15 Pro and 46 on the 17 Pro Max. In terms of colors, again, very nice, but in terms of sharpness and detail levels, I think that the 17 Pro Max has an edge there. I'm not sure if it's using the 5x lens to crop in and get like the details there, but you can see almost completely blurry here on the 15 Pro, where it's nicer, sharper on the 17 Pro Max. Also, the face a bit more yellowish. It's a bit more reddish here, but I think it's going more towards what the 15 Pro is showing. It's a bit too yellowish there on the 17 Pro. The cutout is nice. You can see the sharpness and detail levels is nicer there for sure. At 35mm, however, both are not the best there, and I don't like either so much, because yeah, they're very heavily sharpened up. Maybe a bit too dark here even on the 15 Pro, where I would prefer the 17 Pro Max lifting the shadow off my face a little bit there. And again, it's a bit too contrasty looking, a bit too over sharpened on the 15 Pro, where the 17 Pro Max is doing a nicer job. I think the cake is going to the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. I forgot to do the night video on the 15 Pro and 17 Pro Max, so I will do it now indoors here. Simulated night video.
just have a light and turn on or turn off the other light there. Hearing the internal mic, so what do you think about this one here? Does it do well, this 15 Pro? I think I used it also in Athens at the beginning of this year. I liked the quality for vlogging and zooming in and zooming out being quite smooth here. And I still like the ultra wide angle for video a bit better on the 15 Pro for sure. But I think the main and the telezoom are a bit more stable and better on the 17 Pro Max. But what do you think? Now the same situation with the 17 Pro Max. We want to change the light a little bit just to see how it competes against the 15 Pro, and turn off this light here with the main camera sensor. What do you think about this one here? Using also the internal mic. I think the internal mics are doing fine here as of a job, picking up my voice very nicely here. What do you think about the 17 Pro Max? How does it compete against the 15 Pro in this dim lit simulated nighttime video situation?
So at daytime we have better colors on the 17 Pro Max, and you can see some more natural rendering, zoom. Can see that some might prefer the Xiaomi 15 Pro's zoom approach with a bit more sharpening applied. At nighttime, there's no benefit of the doubt that the 17 Pro Max is really doing better than this 15 Pro. First of all, the zoom shot 10x versus 10x, you can see that yes, it's a bit sharpening up here, a bit maybe over sharpening on the 17 Pro Max, like we saw in the daylight, where the 17 Pro Max is at 10x now, over kicking, over sharpening, the same way as the 15 Pro is doing at 5x already. At 10x, it's much softer. And here we can see better HDR on the 17 Pro Max and better sharpening and sharpness on the 17 Pro Max. So the 17 Pro Max, I think, is taking this for this lower light situation. This is an ultra wide angle shot just to make it's also lower light. It appears to be a bit better HDR here, where here it's a little bit overblown, same spot. Like I said, 15 Pro, in my opinion, has the better ultra wide angle there. It is wider, and the quality on both of them is almost identical. Color's nicer on the 17 Pro Max, but overall the difference between those two is negligible in terms of like zoom or detail levels if you want to crop in. But the wider field of view, the 15 Pro is taking the crown. Let's go into the main camera sensor. Here I was surprised, and I was like double checking, even like after I took the shots, if I mistakenly switched one to Leica Vivid and the other one Leica Authentic. But no, both are running at Leica Authentic, and this is the main camera sensor where I see the huge differentiator between those two. And the night processing, I think it is. First of all, we can see here ISO 1000. Here we can see ISO 80. Why is that the case? I don't really know. Maybe the 15 Pro is not kicking in with the night mode, even though we have 1/30 freeze of a second, and it has the wider field of wider aperture there, but still it's looking very soft in comparison to the 17 Pro Max. That with ISO of 80 is of course winning in terms of detail levels against the 1000, where it's like denoising everything to oblivion. It's a bit sharpened up more, so you can see that, especially when you compare the daylight and nighttime shots, that the 17 Pro Max at nighttime is applying a little bit more of this sharpening algorithm, maybe almost the same as what the 15 Pro is doing at daylight. So everything is a little bit, the foliage is not so good, but it's still, it's worlds apart between those two when it comes to the sharpness and detail levels, just because the ISO, it's a huge differentiator between those two, where I think the 17 Pro Max is clearly winning against the 15 Pro at nighttime. And the same goes for zooming in. This is now 690, which was 720. I think it's 30 times zoom if I'm not completely mistaken. And this, or even more. Also, sharpness, detail level, a little bit better. HDR, I think I don't see much of a difference between those two, both struggling a bit on those 5x lenses that are doing this. It's a bit over sharpened. You can see those over sharpening algorithms there definitely on the 17 Pro Max, but it's a win for the 17 Pro Max. And also this one even further, 1380 versus 1440 millimeters, nicer on, more readable on the 17 Pro Max. I don't want to even zoom in because it's like, but see this in comparison. The 17 Pro Max is doing a better job there than the 15 Pro for sure. Then selfie here, I have to say that I like the exposure on the 15 Pro a bit better because it's not so dark, as here it's a bit too dark and getting too much contrast in. But detail levels, much nicer on the 17 Pro Max. Not only processing, it's just, I think the lens is just a bit better there. And yes, it's like mirrored for some reason, I don't know why, both mirrored, so I kept it like this. Then the ultra wide angle at complete darkness there with the lights. You can see that the 17 Pro Max is also struggling a little bit with the lens flare there, where the 15 Pro doesn't have this issue. So yeah, in my opinion, also warmer, it's much greener and cooler. It's struggling a lot on the 17 Pro Max, even though the detail levels between those two, not much of a difference, but it should be much better because of the narrow field of view on the 17 Pro Max, which is not. So yeah, it's a win for the 15 Pro. And then the main camera sensor, again, a win for the 17 Pro Max. I'm quite surprised. It is over sharpening for sure. You can see the lines here, especially on the balcony. Maybe there a little bit, there a bit more exposed maybe. Sharpened up for sure. Both struggle a bit with HDR. But it is definitely something where I would prefer for croppability, the 17 Pro Max over the 15 Pro for sure. So you can see the most differences between those two. Yeah, the 17 Pro Max has a better main camera sensor than the 15 Pro. And then selfie again, we can see one of the things that is bad if you have the selfie with the flashlight, so the display turned on. It's overblown everything here for some reason and giving a little bit of a haze on the 15 Pro, where it doesn't do this on the 17 Pro Max. And when you check out the detail levels, it is a bit better. First of all, it's like going down here to, what is it? 12.6. Here it's like 32 megapixels for some reason, which helps a little bit. But even if I zoom out, you can see it's a bit more contrast, a bit more detailed there on the 17 Pro Max. So yeah, 17 Pro Max takes nicer selfies also indoors here. Now the selfie. Now this is interesting because it's also at 32, but it's like wider. It shows the wider field of view, 21, where this shows 27 millimeters, and very comparable there. And then I think I still like the selfie cam of the 17 Pro Max a bit better. So what do you think? Write it on the comment section. We come to the ranking and conclusion. TLDR, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max gets 4.525 points, where the Xiaomi 15 Pro gets 4.470 points. So we have a winner here with the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, and not a huge difference between those two. But let's take a look at the differences in more details. First of all, the main camera photo quality is slightly better on the 17 Pro Max. It's a lot better at nighttime, no matter if you're using Leica Authentic or Leica Vibrant. It just gives you the clearer shots. And I get vibes just like from a 1-inch type sensor on the 17 Pro Max, which is a huge improvement, taking into account that we have a smaller sensor size with 1/1.28 inch size sensor. But it's, yeah, winning against the 15 Pro for sure, especially at nighttime. At daylight, we have much more accurate colors on the 17 Pro Max, and it does not need to apply so much heavily sharpening that the 15 Pro has for sure. Ultra wide angle is a bit of a different cake there. It is a bit of an afterthought on the 17 Pro Max. It feels like it. It's a very narrow field of view with 17 millimeters, one of the narrowest ultra wide angle cameras that calls itself ultra wide angle. The one on the 15 Pro with 14 millimeters is much wider there. The quality difference between those two is almost negligible. Yes, the colors are a bit better on the 17 Pro Max, but the rest is almost identical. And as we get a wider field of view on the 15 Pro, I would just say it's a win for the 15 Pro there. The zoom and portrait photo quality. What is the huge difference here? Both have 5x zoom. There's a slight focal length difference between those two, but we have much better sensor, it seems, on the 17 Pro Max, and a bit of different processing. Because at 5x, the 15 Pro relies on its heavy sharpening, and it relies on tons of optimizations that the 17 Pro Max does not have to do. So the 17 Pro Max looks a little bit softer there at daylight, but actually looks a bit more natural than the 15 Pro. It changes completely, where the 15 Pro at 10x If you zoom in, looks much more natural, a little bit like an optical zoom. And the 17 Pro Max is turning everything to oblivion in terms of like sharpness and detail levels. That is just looking unnatural. It's sharpening everything up, text and so on, where it looks like nicer on the 15 Pro. The same goes also for the portrait shots, and now it becomes interesting. So portrait shots are going up to 5x on both, where I would say that 5x is almost identical between those two, with a slight win maybe to the 15 Pro there. But it could be also that it's just because it has a little bit more of this bump in effect at 20 millimeters. So it's a little bit like more zoomed in. But it's not much of a difference. It's also like maybe the aperture playing a role in there. But we have a newer sensor definitely on the 17 Pro Max. And at 3x portraits, it's working much nicer on the 17 Pro Max. Even though the 15 Pro looks a bit sharper, it struggles with HDR, where the 17 Pro Max usually does not. And the 17 Pro Max looks a bit more natural with sharpness, even though the AI is doing a lot of things there, like the fake eyes on those puppets, which look a little bit creepy there for sure on the 17 Pro Max. But you really have to look and pixel peep to see it even. But especially the sharpening algorithms on the 15 Pro Max, you saw it in the little details there of the close. It makes it so unnatural looking on the 15 Pro that I definitely give it a win to the 17 Pro. So definitely the zoom and portrait shot photo quality is a win for the 17 Pro Max. Video recording quality is also a win for the 17 Pro Max, based just upon the main and the telezoom camera being better. The ultra wide angle is worse than the 15 Pro. I think I saw more stutters there and less stability, and the frame rate issues with the ultra wide angle. So I would just go with, if you want to shoot ultra wide angle, the 15 Pro is much better, much nicer. But everything else, like main camera footage, also at low light, you saw it. The 17 Pro Max is handling this much nicer. It doesn't have so much noise. So the newer sensor in there is working much nicer for sure. And for telezoom, I think it's more stable and also a little bit sharper there on the 17 Pro Max. Autofocus performance on both is similar. Not much of a difference between those two. There's only one difference. It's that the front-facing camera features autofocus on the 17 Pro Max, which the 15 Pro doesn't have. Now we come to the front-facing camera. It's also better on the 17 Pro Max, not only because of autofocus, but also the colors are much nicer. The nighttime shots are way nicer, especially if you have the display turned on as a flash. And overall, even though we have 12 megapixels that's binning down to from 50, more details, and it's a bit sharper than the 15 Pro that for some reason is producing 32 megapixel selfies, but it's not giving you more in terms of detail levels or sharpening there. Extra features and camera UI are basically identical, especially when we go on to HyperOS 3. There's only one major differentiator in terms of videography. This is also maybe why videography has a bit of a higher score there. We have log recording on the 17 Pro Max that we don't have on the 15 Pro. And 8K recording, forget about it, but 4K is very nice. 4K 120 frames per second on the 17 Pro Max as well. In general, I would say in terms of like camera software wise, they are almost identical there and get the same kind of points. Where does it leave us in the ranking list? Check out the ranking list here and you can see that number 10 is now Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. So it is, if you take a look at where is the Xiaomi 15 Pro, 14. So it's like taking a step up to the 15 Pro. Feels almost like the same step that the 15 Pro took from the 14 Pro, but when you look at the ranking here, you can see that the 14 Pro is ranked even lower there at 29. So it's a huge step from the 14 Pro to the 15 Pro. Why is that the case? I think it's the selfie cam that improved a lot there, and the telezoom being way better on the 15 Pro because they switched from 3x on the 14 Pro to the 5x zoom there on the 15 Pro. Hybrid, of course, because it's like also not hybrid 5x on, but also like the 3x is simulating. It's not a new technology. They're doing it already in the 15 Pro as well. So where they are cutting out from the 5x sensor the middle part and merge it together with the one times sensor. shootout. Anyway, it is definitely the 17 Pro Max weaker than the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, and it is scoring a bit higher than the Oppo Find X8 Pro that has a smaller main camera sensor, has a better ultra wide angle, but in terms of zoom and portrait photography with two, I think, zoom lenses that it has, is a bit is on par there with the 17 Pro Max, which is quite interesting. Video recording quality is also on par with the Find X8 Pro. Oh, this will be if I would have the Find X8 Pro, I would like test this against each other again. But I think especially at low light, the main camera sensor might be really a game changer there on the 17 Pro Max. Front-facing camera is identical there. Camera UI is the Oppo's like weakness, or was the weakness on the Find X8 Pro. I don't know if they got the Pro camera features there, and the one-hand usage is very nice on the 17 Pro, much nicer on than on ColorOS's camera application of the Oppo. Otherwise, it's behind the Huawei Pure 70 Ultra, last year's flagship. Where do we see a much difference? It's the ultra wide angle, it's much wider. Zoom camera, however, I may have the ability to test them out, is almost identical there. Video recording quality is even better on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max than on the Pure 70 Ultra. Whoa! Why is that the case? Probably the ultra wide angle, which is a total downfall of the Pure 70 Ultra in terms of videography. And I think the selfie has some weakness there as well. And together with all the features that we have on the 17 Pro Max, I think this might be correct here. And yeah, the front-facing camera on the Pure 70 Ultra, however, for photos, takes the lead here. Wider field of view, has autofocus. Oh, will be something that we have to test if this is really true or not. But next test probably will be the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max against the Pure 80 Ultra that we have up here. Because, yeah, I just took some shots between those two. So if you're interested in this one, keep subscribed, hit the like button. Tell me what you think about this ranking. I know it has some flaws, this ranking system, but overall the ranking system is now a bit hard, so I will stick to it for now. And at one point, maybe make a clean cut, and at the end of the year or next year or whenever I feel like it, I will keep this ranking list, but will create maybe a new ranking system. And I'm collecting information from you on how we could do this eventually. But for now, we keep this ranking system so everything is nice and clear, and you can compare stuff. Does it make sense to buy the 17 Pro Max if you have the 15 Pro? Camera-wise, maybe you have to decide if those 0.1 points more in the overall ranking of the score here is really, maybe it's a bit more, it's like, it is almost, yeah. If it makes sense for you, you be the judge. You can figure it out on your own. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye.